It's 9:41. This is a live look in New Orleans. The camera still shaking this morning from the winds that Tropical Storm Barry's generating. This is probably the strongest we've seen it shaking all morning, too.
And I think, just because this is called a tropical storm, people still really need to take this seriously, especially when it comes to that flood risk, right?
Definitely. Water expected to be up to a foot, even more of rainfall from this system as it moves through. So flooding is definitely a really big issue on top of the wind. So just a few years back, they dealt with 3 days of just nonstop rain in Louisiana. It wasn't a tropical system because there wasn't much in the way of the winds, but with wind speeds at 70 miles per hour, it's making this pretty tropical, especially with the pressure drop down to 991 millibars. So as we get closer to 10 o'clock this morning, that's when the next advisory should be in place. And we still can see this strengthening into a Category 1 hurricane before making landfall in south central Louisiana later this morning into the early afternoon hours. So it is moving northwest 5 miles per hour. So there is some movement, but very slow. And because it's so slow, it's going to continue to wrap around all that moisture along with it. So that's going to dump in a lot of rain, a lot of onshore wind. So that leads to the coastal flooding on top of the actual flooding happening from the tides and then with the rain falling. So a lot of flooding will be an issue with this system as it continues to work its way across land. As soon as it reaches Alexandria, central Louisiana, it should begin to weaken just a bit as it loses its strength. And that's all from the Gulf moist waters there in the south. So when it doesn't have that moisture, when it's cut off from that, we're going to see the winds dying down and also the system becoming a depression, then weakening into just a rainmaker as it continues in that northeasterly direction. So there's a closer look on where it's going to make some landfall over the next few hours, and that's between Morgan City and also between St. Mary Parish right along here and Vermilion Parish right along here. So right in between is where it's going to make landfall, rolling over land into Lafayette Parish as well. So it does expect to make its way across land, possibly as a Category 1 hurricane. But as for storm surge, this is what we're looking at. But let's take into consideration that we do have a lot of marshland, a lot of vegetation. So when you take that out of the picture, this is where the actual surge will be, and that's in the areas of yellow up to 3 feet. So we do have some relief of what the models were showing earlier this week, where some areas we're seeing up to 6 feet of storm surge. So even New Orleans, that's an area that a lot of people are keeping their eyes on, is in the clear from the surge, but not in the clear from the rain. So they do expect to see that very heavy rain coming in at times for today. Now, we do have some of that rain already circulating across Lafayette, also into the areas expected to see the landfall. So that includes St. Mary Parish there, Franklin, Morgan City, Jeanerette. And then as we take a look off towards the east, New Orleans starting to see a few showers rolling their way in from the south. On top of these showers, they do have some gusting winds. Earlier, we did see a wind gust in the 70s and even into the 80s along the coastal areas near Grand Isle. Well out towards the east, though, look at that, Mobile, Alabama, even the most western half of the Panhandle of Florida dealing with the onshore movement of that rain coming into land. So very heavy rain is expected, and notice it's training in the same spot. So that's going to lead to even some localized flooding early this morning. So the system will continue to wrap around, dragging all that moisture along with it. So typically this is what these lows tend to do. And since it is a tropical system, it also has the winds as well associated with it. So this goes into the afternoon, even into tomorrow as well. So some rainfall totals for South Louisiana, anywhere between over a foot to even a foot and a half. Some models were showing as much as 20. So because of these conditions, we do have a flood watch in effect for portions of the United States shaded in the green. And that's because favorable conditions are expected for those types of conditions when we have that very heavy training rain in the same spot. So there's a little bit of a view over visible satellite there. And then as we take a look well off towards the Atlantic, we do have another area that we are watching, but it does look like it's going to encounter a lot of obstacles as it continues in a westerly motion. Models cut it off before even reaching the islands there. So again, we are going to keep our eye on that as it is hurricane season. Temperatures for us today in the 90s. And guess what? We do expect to see some rain late this afternoon. So some scattered storms are still in the forecast for today, and even some heavy rain, some lightning associated with that. But that's not for another few hours. So it's still going to be dry up until 3 o'clock. That's when we're going to start to see some storms developing. Sunday, same pattern. But temperatures are going to be in the 90s. Keep in mind with humidity feeling like the hundreds.
R. Kelly's back in the